Where are you?
No.
Sorry, say that again.
Go ahead, Dorothy.
Me. What is, I just wonder where you are now.
I'm in New York.
Oh, I see. Quite a distance separates us.
Mhm. Very nice to meet you.
And it's nice to see you, Shelby. Okay to call you Shelby?
Yes.
And I'm Dorothy to everybody. Nobody ever calls me Mrs. anybody.
Hey, Ms. Dorothy, is it okay if you could tell me before you entered World War II?
Shelby wants to know what you were doing prior to entering the war.
Oh, you're asking now about the, yeah, I was doing secretarial work. I was working in an office in South Carolina where I was raised, where I was working.
That's very cool. What was your family like?
I came from a large family, actually. There were 6 of us. Back in those days, people were poor, but they had large families. So there were 6 of us. I had 3 brothers, and then I came along, and then another sister, one sister, and then 1 younger brother. So there were 6 of us kids. That's a large family, but it was the normal size back then. Yeah.
So out of all your siblings, were you the oldest, middle, or youngest?
No, I was the oldest girl, but there were 3 boys. There were 3 brothers older than I, 3 boys. And then I came along, and then another sister, and then another brother. So that counts up 6 people.
Wow. Did any of your family members serve in the military?
Did they serve in the military?
Yes, I was the first one to go. I was in 1942. The war had started, of course. And I was the first one in my family to volunteer and go into the Navy. And then later I had my youngest brother told a bunch of lies. He wasn't old enough to go into the military. So he went into the Marine Corps just about the time he was 17 years old. And the other brother, who was 2 years older than I, went into the Navy quite a while after I did. He went in to the Navy. And then another brother who was married and had children volunteered and went into the Air Force. So that was, and then I had a brother-in-law, my sister's husband, when it was in the National Guard. So he was in the whole thing from the beginning to the end.
Wow.
It was all up to date.
Yeah.
And the National Guard brother-in-law, Buck, would have served in the Army, right?
Yes, he was in the Army. The brother-in-law was.
That's very cool. Did you have to work as a child?
No, the children were not hired to do, not even babysitting. No, I didn't do anything but stay at home and get in my mother's way and learn to cook a little. But there was no jobs or demand for children to work at that time.
Wow.
Well, your brother worked in the barbershop.
Oh, my oldest brother, my father was a barber. I don't know if you want to know all this or not.
Yes,
But
I do.
My father was a barber, and barbers don't make much money. So my oldest brother would go down and help do things at the barber shop. He would clean up and supply showers, because many people didn't have showers or baths in their homes.
Wow.
Yeah, I came from the greatest generation, but the poorest generation. So we didn't have a whole lot. And he would help my father at the barber shop to keep the place cleaned up and to keep the showers all ready, because people would come in and pay a quarter to get a nice hot shower. See, things were a little different then. Yeah.
And you might like to know that many houses did not have indoor plumbing. And
Really?
you'd have to go to the outhouse.
Hush up, that's not very good to
mean-
know.
Wouldn't that be interesting to know, Shelby?
Yes, yes, I mean, I heard that.
Well, we've lived in rented houses when I was a child that did not have indoor plumbing, or even a faucet maybe on the back porch. Now that's living pretty poorly. So we'd go on the back porch to turn on water to bring in to cook and to drink. Yep.
But you'd have to go to the bathroom at the outhouse.
We had a little path that went down the way around the garden and all that. And that was the outhouse. And I'm not particularly proud of the fact that we had an outhouse. So there.
Wow. Where did you go to school?
I went to an elementary school in South Carolina. We lived in a little town called Rock Hill. It was just south of Charlotte. Charlotte is near the North-South Carolina border. And Rock Hill, my hometown, was just down south of the line. And I was full of elementary schools. So we all went to the same little elementary school from time to time, and then high school. So I graduated from high school, and I will say I was the first one in my family to graduate from high school. And then over a period of time, of course, I got a job, went to work as soon as I could. But I did get a couple of years of college by going here and there, and even out here to take some classes in photojournalism, which added to my 2 years of college. That was it. I never graduated college. I was a Girl Scout leader when my girls were smaller. Brownies and Girl Scouts was very interesting and important in our lives.
Were there any daisies? Because from what I know, brownies is the second level of being a Girl Scout.
The brownies, that wasn't that the first level? The brownies were
Oh, the
little
brownies came into when they were in first or second grade, I think. And then as they got older, they became Girl Scouts. And it was fun because we could go camping and do things that they hadn't had any experience doing yet. And then but they got the little sash thing that went across. And when they would qualify as a cooker or
For a
whatever
new
they were
badge,
doing,
a new badge.
they'd get a badge to go on that. Kept me pretty busy.
Okay, were you married before you left for the military?
Was that what?
Married.
Oh, no, I was not married before I went into the military. And
Okay.
after I got out, I met this wonderful guy who also had been in the Navy, only he had been an officer where I had been just a yeoman. That is, a person that works in an office and takes dictation and types letters and stuff like that. I did that, and I was a recruitment, or I did recruit.
You were a recruiter.
A recruiter, where I would go around traveling around North and South Carolina, speaking to clubs and groups and individuals, and having girls, if I could talk them into it, to come into the Navy like I was, but they had to qualify pretty well, to pass an aptitude test and physical, because we didn't want just odds and ends of people that we wouldn't like to work with, to be stationed with. Yeah.
Yeah, Okay, at one point, during when I was sorry, at one point when I was writing your questions, I saw that you learned of the attack of Pearl Harbor. Can you tell me what you were doing that day?
When the attack came to Pearl Harbor,
Mhm.
what were you doing that day?
Oh, no, when I remember that Sunday, December 7th, 1941. And none of us had gone in to the military at that time. And my mother and I had gotten home from church on Sunday morning, and they announced on the radio, because it was before television too, it was quite a few things we did not have. But they announced on the radio that this attack had come on Pearl Harbor, and so many of our ships and personnel were stationed there at the time were lost during that Sunday morning attack, early on Sunday morning. I remember that.
Wow. When did you enlist in the army? Or sorry, military?
When did you enlist in the
Oh,
military?
I went into after the war we got into the war after this attack on Pearl Harbor. Of course, the president announced right away that we were in war with the Japanese, and he also announced we were in charge in war too with Germany. And then that was early in remember that happened in 1941, the attack. So early in 1942 is when things begin to come right home to us. And I started getting interested in doing what you can for the war effort. Just not sitting there waiting for somebody else to finish it up. And one fine day, it was over in the middle of summer, and there was a notice in the paper that if any, like me, in my age bracket and qualified as I was, who might be interested in coming to Charlotte and talking to a recruiter about going into the military. And boy, that sounded good to me. That sounded exciting. And there I was. So I went up to Charlotte and talked to them. And there was a whole room full of girls who had come. They saw the same notice in the Charlotte paper that this was going to happen. So we were there talking to this recruiter about the possibility of going into the Navy, just like the boys did. It wasn't like an auxiliary type thing or a helping thing. We would go in just like the boys did for the same length of time until the duration of the war is what we were for. So sure enough, I was accepted. There were 6 of us, I remember, who were selected from that room full of girls who had applied. And we were told that we would go out. You want to know all this stuff? If I'm talking too much, just tell me to hush. Anyway,
Nope, you're okay.
we went on the train out to Stillwater, Oklahoma, because the Navy had taken over a university there at Stillwater, Oklahoma, for the training of girls, because they were doing the same sort of thing all over the country. They were interviewing and asking for qualified girls who might be interested in applying. And there, suddenly this university was pretty well filled with girls from not only from Rock Hill and Charlotte, North Carolina, but from all over the country. And I had a roommate when I went in. I was assigned a room there, a room with 2 other girls. And one was from Minnesota, and she talked funny. And another one was from Wisconsin. And I thought she talked funny too. And they thought I talked funny because I was from the South.
But Shelby might want to know that that was the first time women were enlisted.
That was
in
the first
military.
time that women were inducted or involved in the military at all, except that had nurses, you know, in the Navy, in the Army, and in the hospitals. But it was the first time they had included women as military personnel.
Wow.
And so I was one of the first girls, women, to go into the military as a military person. Uniform and saluting and marching and same pay, the same everything that the boys had. And it was fun.
Um, did you make any friends?
Oh, yeah. Made some wonderful friends. Over the period of time, though, now remember, this was World War II.
Mhm.
And this is when people started, well, naturally, as soon as the war was over, we went home and most of us got married and started families of our own and started getting older and older. So each year since, that's been 80 years ago, that's a long time. And the attrition, that is the loss of personnel, has been great. Each year, there are fewer and fewer and fewer of the World War veterans left. We're beginning to get pretty scarce.
Yeah, I remember the
Pardon me?
sorry, I'm just saying the oldest World War II veteran, Lawrence Brooks, he died at 112.
112. He passed away.
112? That's
Yep.
getting up there. That's a little older than I.
Dorothy's
Yep.
101, Shelby.
I'm 101 now. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Hey, Shelby, how old are you?
16.
16.
And you work with Girl Scouts.
Yep, I'm a Girl Scout ambassador.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Yep.
It was fun when we did the work. The Girl Scout work was fun too. And we saw those girls grow, changing from little brownies up to Girl Scouts. And then, of course, they're all adults and gone now, having families of their own.
Mhm.
So one thing after another takes over from something else.
Yep. Wait, before I continue, did you happen to, by any chance, did you meet probably the founder of Girl Scouts?
Now, what was
Did you
that?
meet, are you asking, did Mother meet the founder of the Girl Scouts?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, that was long before my time when the founder of the Girl Scouts,
Wasn't that in the 1800s?
I don't remember.
Oh.
Mrs. Lowe was her, what's her name, Mrs. Lowe?
Julia Gordon Lowe.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
What year did she live, Shelby?
Great, I forgot because I'm just wondering because I remember she was alive during World War I.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
So that would have been prior to Mother's time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot. Okay, anyway, what was the training like for you?
The training.
Oh, the training. Yeah,
Mhm.
we had at least 2 months training out there in Oklahoma. We had to learn to do everything the boys had to learn to do. Of course, we had marching duties and so learning to salute and learning to change the name of everything. You don't talk about walls and floors and bathrooms. They all have their own Navy names, like the bathroom becomes the head,
Mhm.
the floor is the deck, the walls are bulkheads, stuff like that. But mainly our training was in secretarial work, learning to type letters the way the Navy does. Instead of "Dear Mr. Jones," it was a to letter and from letter and the subject. And then you go right into the base of the letter and you don't say "yours very truly" or all that sort of thing, like you do when you're writing a letter from a job you're getting paid for. So you write it just like the Navy wants it, and the way it goes.
After you completed the training, where were you stationed at?
When I first finished the training in Stillwater, Oklahoma, I had requested, most of the girls were sent back to Washington, D.C. because we were mostly, we had basic
Clerical.
experience in offices, and that's where they needed them. What they needed was girls to replace the men. So the men who had been doing office work, typing and doing that sort of thing, heck, they needed them to be their duty on board ship or out in the islands where fighting was going on. So that was the main reason to have so many girls come in and take their places, so the boys could go where the danger was. They didn't send the women to any kind of dangerous spots at all. So we finished our training back there in Oklahoma. And like I say, so many went to Washington, D.C. because those offices in Washington, D.C. were just clamoring for more and more and more women to come in there and do that typing and letter writing. And I had sounded off to somebody that I would like to go to Charleston, South Carolina, which is my favorite city in the whole wide world. It's a wonderful city. And I said to anybody that would listen to me that I would love to go to Charleston. And suddenly here came my orders to go to Charleston, South Carolina. And I was the happiest girl in the Navy to do that because it's a great place to be. And I was stationed there. And then after I'd been there a while just working for the SEAL of the base, they needed a recruiter to go around and talk to other girls. So they chose me to become a recruiter. And that's when I would go from up to Raleigh and across to Knoxville, Tennessee, and Asheville, North Carolina, was all in the same territory, down as far as Atlanta. So I was running around that part of the country doing recruiting work.
And
Getting
then,
more.
you recruited women and men too, didn't you?
Well, I'd work out of the recruiting station that was there for the men, and I would help type up stuff for the boys, just helping when I could. But my main object was to interview and give these aptitude tests to any girl who was the right age and the right amount of education and health-wise, and see if they would fit the needs and the requirements to go into, as we were called, waves. We were named, it stands for Women Accepted for Voluntary Emergency Service. And that's what WAVES stands for. And that's what I did.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also learned that you were in Hawaii when you learned of Franklin Roosevelt's death. Is it okay if you could tell me about it?
When Franklin Delano Roosevelt died.
Oh, when he
He
died.
wants to know what that was like.
That was a sad, sad day. Yeah, they finally had allowed a handful of women from the Navy to go to Hawaii. See, Hawaii was not a state at that time, it was a territory. So boy, when this directive came over my desk saying that any women who were interested in applying for transfer duty to Hawaii, man, I got my request in right away. So I was sent there. And that day, and I can't remember when it was in the summer.
Was it when he
when
died?
he died. But anyway, I was, I heard that on the radio that he had passed away. So I immediately called the CO of the base because the flag had to be lowered and all the amenities had to be gone through because of his death. And that was a very sad time for everybody. It was.
He died April 12th, 1945.
It was in April. Well, I'd only been there
April
like
12th.
a couple of months. And he died, he was down in Georgia
Is that
when
right?
he died. Yeah, that was, but one day I had lunch with Mrs. Roosevelt. Now that's another story. We'll talk about that another time if you like. But I had lunch with Mrs. Roosevelt and that was great.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you attend President Roosevelt's funeral?
Oh gosh, no. I was out there in Hawaii and he was back on the East Coast. And we got, and like I say, that was before the time of TV. So all we got was pictures that came in the papers and what they would announce on the radio is all we got. And
Wow.
but that was quite an event.
It was like the country lost its best friend.
Well, the country did. The country lost. Thank heavens, he was president at the time. He was, and he was responsible for all the good things that came out of getting that war out of the way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, when the war ended, did you celebrate it?
Oh heavens, yes. When we got the word, we were staying in the barracks, and there were by this time there were about 35 girls, women, who were stationed out there on the big island where I was.
Mhm.
And when they announced of course, that the war was over, we were hooping it up and, making a big to-do because we were going home. And directly across from our barracks was the barracks where the guys who served as the firemen on the base were stationed. And man, they turned on their lights and turned on any noise they could make. And they were hooping and hollering and carrying on. And they wanted to come over and have a big party in our barracks. And boy, the master at arms, that's one who's in charge of our barracks, went around locking doors like crazy. They weren't going to have those boys coming in celebrating anything. Get back over there where you belong. But we just did. Hallelujah. Now we can call home and say we're on our way home, because that was the end of the war. Big deal.
A very big deal.
Very big. Mhm.
Okay, okay, when were you discharged from the military?
When were
When
you discharged?
it was in 1945, like I say, we went in until the duration of the war. So when the war was ended and the peace was declared, so they wanted to get all the expenses taken care of they could, and sending as many people home that could go home and stop receiving those pitiful little monthly payments and all that sort of thing was the thing that they did. So as soon as the war ended, they started depleting the military personnel as
Let
far
me
as
ask
they
you this
could.
though, Mom, were you released from service after Japan surrendered?
Japan surrendered
In 45, they surrendered in 45.
Well, I think Japan had surrendered already, because we were finally out of the war with Germany as well as Japan. And now we have to build up our own country again, because they've gone 4 years there with the jobs were different, people were different. They came home. We started, and when I went home, we opened a new office called the Veterans Administration. And we applied mostly, worked with veterans who were coming home, and some of them needed jobs, they needed everything. So they'd come to our office. Now I was out of the military now, but I'm still working for the government, you might say. And we helped a lot of veterans get their insurance straightened out or to go to school under the GI Bill. There are many, many advantages to being a veteran. You could have this schooling the government paid for, and the insurance and medical attention and all that sort of thing.
And just so you know, Japan surrendered September 2nd, 1945.
45.
And you got out in October, right? I think you,
I wrote
September
it down,
2nd
listen.
was,
She was discharged on after VJ Day.
Now say that again.
no, VJ Day was the victory in Europe, right? Shelby?
No, the victory in Japan, like
Japanese.
Oh, victory in
VJ.
Japan. So I think you were released in October 45. So that's right, a month after.
49. No,
45.
45.
So that's a month after Japan surrendered in September 2nd. So you left the military in October, a month later.
Well, it takes a little while to get out of there. Get you some civilian clothes, go back home. Yeah.
what is one thing from your service that you will never forget?
Oh, there's so many things during that time that I'll never forget. I met some of the most wonderful people I'd ever met. Of course, in the period of time since then, very few of us are left. And yeah, I met some great people. And then, like I say, when I got out and came out here then and met the man who became my husband. And so we got married and had 2 years later, we had the oldest daughter. 2 years later, we had the one that's here with me now. 2 years later, we have another girl. And 2 years later, we have a son. So there were 4 kids in a period of less than 10 years. I was not busy with Navy duty, but I was sure busy with a house full of children having to be taken care of. Yeah.
Okay, were there any medals or awards that you received?
The only medals, see, we were never in any combat or any fighting war at all. So I received a combat medal for the Pacific, serving in the Pacific, and a good conduct medal, which anybody can get it. They just stay out of trouble for a while. And those are the only 2 medals I received. Yeah.
Okay. What was your occupation after you were discharged?
Well, of course, when I was discharged, the jobs were scarce. But we opened this Veterans Administration office in my little town of Rock Hill. And that was where I was doing back to secretarial work. And the veterans would come in there for all the needs and advice they needed, because they were back home after being 4 years and didn't quite know what to do with themselves. So we had meetings with them and helping them where we could. Yeah.
Wow. Um, was the transition from being out of the military difficult?
The transition going from the military to.
Actually, it wasn't, because there wasn't that much difference in it. The only thing was the wonderful feeling that people we know were not being shot at anymore. And getting the country back to the way it should be without President Roosevelt there to tell us where we should go and what we should do. And it came back into pretty much jobs became like now, when jobs were scarce and people still had families to support and groceries to buy and all that sort of thing. So there wasn't much change. It was just like you change from going to school to going into the workforce. You just have the job, the demand is there and you have to do it. So you do it.
Did you attend ceremonies honoring World War II veterans like yourself?
Say it again, Shelby.
Did you attend ceremonies honoring World War II veterans like yourself?
Oh, we have been, back then, of course, you were busy straightening your own life out. But recently, they've had some wonderful things for veterans, especially World War II veterans. One was to take from here, from Fresno, where I live, a plane full of people to fly back to Washington, D.C. We had 3 days back there of
With the honor flight.
it's called the honor flight, all veterans of World War II primarily. And the veterans themselves would take a care person along. And of course, everybody has to have somebody to watch after them. So my daughter, Kate, the one that's here with me now, was my care person. And we had a lovely time. We went back to Washington and saw, although I'd been to Washington before, but we saw places and went to places that we'd never seen before.
Well, like the
and it
World
was
War II
great.
Memorial.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
that
went
was
to
the fundamental reason
yeah.
was so you veterans could see your memorial.
So we could see what we had struggled for 4 years. And it was super. You're proud of your country. And then when you see something like this January attack on the Capitol, you just,
The January 6th riot.
yeah, that thing, that makes me absolutely furious to see breaking out windows in our Capitol building. I just hope the people will be fined and imprisoned. I don't know what they're going to do with them for pulling that ridiculous stunt.
Yeah, I remember during the time it happened, I was actually in a piano lesson and my mom wanted me to leave that lesson because the attack was happening and she wanted me to see because they may have wanted to talk about it at my school the next day. And I was like, oh my God, are they serious?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You couldn't
it's
believe,
profoundly serious.
absolutely couldn't believe that could be happening in our country at our capital. It still just shakes me right down to my toenails. It's a horrible thing.
Yeah, in fact, I'm not sorry. I don't think if it was true or not, or may have remembered this, but they also found 2 IEDs on the scene, and no one knows.
IEVs. What are IEVs?
IEDs, like improvised explosion devices,
Oh,
almost
my
like a bomb.
Oh, IEDs. I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
No, it was very bad. Indeed, very, very bad, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they caught the guy who planted them there, or if they know who it was, but yeah, they just told me. But I just heard they found 2 IEDs on the scene, and I think they were disabled before they exploded.
That's
Oh,
very
gosh.
good.
That's all we need.
Mhm.
And then we look at this Russian,
Attack on Ukraine.
their attack on Ukraine, and how those people are being separated from their families, children sent one place, husbands staying there.
Mhm.
We don't learn much, do we? We
Yeah.
see things happen in one war and we turn around and do something just as stupid and unnecessary as what those Russians are trying to do to the
Yeah.
country surrounding them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sad. In fact, some people are comparing Putin to Hitler.
Yeah,
that's
right,
There's
right.
even a picture up there.
There's
Like, it's
a comparison picture, Shelby.
yeah, comparison picture like two ugly dictators into one dictator.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's, our freedom is precious, Shelby.
Very.
It's not taken for granted, right? That's what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just hoping that war in Ukraine will end
Like very soon,
I
I
know.
pray.
very. So, and wait, I learned that you went to Pearl Harbor for its 80th anniversary. Can you tell me about that?
What about Pearl Harbor?
Remember, we were just there in December
Yeah.
for the 80th anniversary of commemorating the Pearl Harbor bombing, and you
Oh,
were
yeah.
there. And Mr. Biden spoke, and
Oh,
the Secretary
that
of the
was
Navy
such a
was
great
there, and
trip.
you met
So-
the governor of Hawaii.
Yes, we
Remember
did.
all of that?
They really, and these people that lived there they remember, of course, when the Japanese came in and wrecked so much of their country, sunk so many of our battleships, so many of our, it frightens me to this day to wonder why they didn't just keep going and come onto the West Coast and wreck the country here. So we've been extremely fortunate in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they were stopped there at Hawaii, and so many people, and when we went around, when we were there a month or so ago, there's still holes in the walls in some of the buildings where the people who were stationed out there were being shot at from the planes,
The Japanese planes.
from the Japanese as they came over. So that was a miserable, horrible thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point I actually interviewed a Pearl Harbor survivor who also went back to Pearl Harbor for its 80th.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did they go with the Better Defense Foundation? Or
Yes.
Best-
Oh,
Well, then we were on the same trip.
we were on the same trip. That's great.
Mhm.
That was a wonderful trip. It was so well planned
Yeah.
and carried out.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. And some of us lucky people got to ride in first class on the plane.
Wow.
So like Queen Elizabeth or somebody, because they separated, my daughter had to go sit back there where I would have been sitting too. But they had a whole section of this luxurious airplane, first class.
They put
And
all
free.
the veterans from about the age of 97 to 104.
We
Put
older
them all,
people.
put them all in first class. It was pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wish I was able to go.
yeah, yeah. You'd have a good time.
Mhm.
But you know Lonnie Edwards now, don't you?
I guess technically I know the BDF's program director.
Okay, all right, good.
So at one point I hope to interview Donnie Edwards one day.
Yeah, he's a nice man.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, what he's doing is just awesome.
It's
Mhm.
awesome. yeah.
It's awesome. And the American Airlines helped defray the cost of that trip. And
dedicated a whole airplane and.
the airplane, I can't believe it. It was wonderful. And we kept, my daughter just kept taking pictures.
Um,
Yeah.
would you go back to Pearl Harbor again?
Oh, I'd go in a minute. I'd love to go again. Yeah. It's a beautiful
Awesome.
place to visit. Beautiful place. And you just have a good feeling being there now.
I bet Shelby would like to know that you're leaving in a few weeks to go to Normandy, France.
Oh, that's right. We've got another trip coming up to go where the invasion of France was,
Normandy.
when the Allies came in to battle with the Nazi Germany people. That's something else. It's
On the coast of France.
That's just amazing.
in April. No, that's
Dorothy's doing
May.
that with the Best Defense Foundation also.
It's
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah, and she's flying first class
going
across the
back in the first
ocean
one.
and back.
Spoiled me rotten. I'll never be able to get on a plane and fly again.
I wish I could go. I've never been out of the country.
Oh, you'll get out of the country soon enough. I know you will.
You haven't been yet out of the, well,
Mm-mm.
listen, like the song says, there's a lot of worlds to see out there. And traveling is a wonderful hobby. Travel while you're young enough that you can walk and climb stairs. I was in this Machu Picchu in Peru, and the stairs are just close right into the wall. I couldn't do it now, but 20 years ago I could. So go travel when you can while you're young and can do it.
Yeah, I just wish I could. Yeah, I just hope that I could hopefully go to Normandy, yeah, to see for the anniversary of D-Day.
Yeah, it's supposed to be quite a celebration over there, Shelby.
Yeah, but
We talked to some French people and it's like the whole coastal region still remembers the Allies coming in to liberate. They had been under Nazi occupation for 4 years when the Allies came in. So it was a big deal.
I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, is right.
Yes. That was all my questions.
That's all your questions, Shelby?
Well, it was nice of you. You made them very easy to talk about. You did a good job.
Now, Shelby,
Yeah.
why are you interested in the history of World War II and veterans and all?
Okay, so I think a couple of years ago, my Girl Scout troop, along with the Boy Scout troop, were assigned to clean a statue for Veterans Day. And I remember before we got to use the fire hose, this news reporter came up to us, and I think before I could talk to her, my mom told me that my grandfather was a veteran of World War II.
Oh, good.
Ah,
Yeah.
and you know that before that moment, huh?
Yeah, I asked him if that was true, and he said yes, that he was a medic and he was stationed in Japan during the post-war era. Yeah, he was a medic in the U.S. Army.
And he went to Japan after the end of the war, is that right?
Yes, I think he went during the post-war era.
Oh, man,
Hold on.
I'm sure he has incredible stories about that.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
How old is your grandfather?
If he were here today, he'd be 93.
Oh, but he passed, huh?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
2020. It wasn't from COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry he's gone.
Yeah.
Thank you. But this was him during his 91st birthday.
Yeah, lovely picture.
This would have been his 91st, or this is a
Oh.
picture
Yeah,
of
that's
him. Let's see.
him during his 91st birthday.
What's his name?
His name was Mr. James.
James?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
And then passed away shortly after that. Is that right?
yeah, he passed away in 2020, and like I had no like like it was really sad during the time, and while I was watching videos of World War II veterans, that because it made me feel close to him, I came across learning about Best Defense Foundation, about the
Ah.
Best Defense Foundation.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Well, Shelby, this is so cool. So we'll definitely tell Donnie Edwards and his wife, Catherine, that we've chatted with you and you're just great. And it was fun, I think, for Dorothy, and was fun for you to talk to Shelby, wasn't it?
oh golly, yeah, it's always. And she had the questions, but they weren't difficult. They
No,
were
not
questions that I knew the answer to
That's right.
primarily. If not, I'd make up a bunch of lies.
Well, Shelby, I hope this helps you, and I hope it helps the people that look at your website.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, stay in
Thanks.
touch with us then if you need more information. But
I will.
let us know the web address and the interview.
I will.
Good.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
love.
hon. Thank
Nice
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful. You did that well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Shelby.